I wanted to talk to you about this in relation to the article that you've written for The Conversation recently in regards to transgender and the genetics of transgenderism.
I've been interested in transgender for quite a long time. The reason was I got involved in looking for the sex-determining gene quite by accident back in the late 1980s when we thought the gene called ZFY was a sex-determining gene. And we're starting to do some work on, is there a ZFY in marsupials? And the long and short of it is, yes, there is, but it's not on the Y chromosome. That's actually the wrong gene. And my student Andrew Sinclair then went to London and cloned the right gene. But at that time, a psychiatrist called Dr. Bowers came to my lab. He'd been working with transsexuals for a long, long time. He was a psychiatrist, and he was one of the few people who would sanction sex change operations. So he was regarded as a big hero in the transsexual community. Right. And he was quite sure that there was something genetic about transsexualism because he observed that a lot of the people he saw had always believed they were the other sex, right, even when they were small children. And he wanted me to look at the ZFY gene and see if there was some sort of mutation in that gene. Well, to begin with, of course, it was the wrong gene. There's a number of different, what they call disorders of sex determination. They call them DSD patients, and there are a lot of different ways in which sex doesn't develop properly. There's something like 30 genes that are involved in either making a testis or an ovary in the embryo. Yes. And if something is wrong with any of those genes, you'll often get sex change. So there's a whole lot of DSDs, and a lot of them that we can't explain yet. There's probably more genes that we don't yet know about in that pathway.
But certainly it's what's occurring is that the embryo and fetus at some points in development, something happens and therefore it moves from whether it was being masculinized in a phenotypic way.
Yes.
Not talking about social or cultural, and then moves back to its being a female phenotype.
And a lot of these people have no idea there's anything amiss. For instance, there's a gene that you've referred to before that is a receptor of androgens.
Yes.
And now if that gene, which is on the X chromosome, if that gene is mutated, you get a perfectly normal looking female. And she doesn't realise that she's actually got a Y chromosome and a perfectly good SRY gene. Yes. Until she fails to menstruate. Several have been models or champion tennis players, right, because they're bigger and stronger and very beautiful. But they have a Y chromosome and an SRY gene, and the SRY gene made testes and the testes made androgens, but their body can't use the androgens because they have no androgen receptor. So that's a very late stage in the pathway, but if you interrupt that stage, you interrupt everything.
Essentially, in terms of intersex development, there is a continuum of, let's say, intersex, for want of a better word, conditions.
Yes, I don't like the term intersex because it's not really inter anything.
What term do you prefer?
Well, I think DSD, disorders of sex determination, it's a blanket term that means just anything that is awry with sex determination.
Right. Maybe the intersex term is the one used by people within the community.
Oh, I think that's probably true in their books called Intersex, but it's a term that doesn't really convey. I mean, these are very specific disorders, and we know a great deal about a lot of them.